What addictions exist that people often simply ignore? Nasal sprays, especially the kind that shrink the inflammation in your nose. I was hooked on it for about a year, thinking I couldn't breathe right without it. It got to the point my body depended on it every few hours and would have panic attacks without it. I was young and thought it was a cold that wouldn't go away. I finally read up on it and stopped using it for a few days. Your body becomes highly dependent on it, and getting off of it is hell. Of course, it's not as serious as some other addictions mentioned, but it's often overlooked as you can find it at almost any pharmacy OTC. Food addiction is absolutely scary. I remember being 16 buying a chocolate bar because I needed a care-shaking junkie, and I just thought to myself, if I looked like this and acted like this, but I was buying alcohol or cigarettes, the random mum and daughter behind me in line would be staring at me. Instead, no one stares at you by one chocolate bar. It's so surreal because you are an addict eating 3 bars a day, or in one sitting, but no one bats an eye because food is normal. It's so normal to just buy food. Sugar. Sometimes people even mention how bad sugar is for them, but they just keep eating sugary foods because it's so hard to quit. Here in America, I've heard that because nearly every food has added sugar that it is harder to quit sugar than it is to quit smoking. Natural sugars in fruits and stuff is okay and necessary for survival, but anything more is asking for trouble. Thankfully, it is easier to keep not eating sugar once you have quit it for about a week. We're all addicted to the phony voice in our minds that judges practically everything in real time. Most important decisions are best made by gathering outside info, writing down thoughts, allowing other perspectives to evaluate. Self-loathing, reactionary violence, anxiety, envy are all the result of listening to our mental avatars. 2 moon rovers, polio vaccines, jet engines, etc. were all the result of time, paper, collaboration and testing. Mental illness. I was at a party once and 2 girls were having a dick swinging competition about what mental illnesses they have, and we're essentially competing about who took the most medication. As some who struggled with mental illness in silence, I had to leave because it made me angry. They were essentially trivializing it. I've been around quite a few people who romanticize mental illness and see it as a quirk makes them unique and interesting. Being addicted to the gym. It's great to have the motive and want to work out and take care of your body. However, many bodybuilders have body dysmorphia. Not only bodybuilders get addicted though. I happen to know a few, and they all basically live in the gym because they can't handle seeing themselves without a pump. Unless in a competition. I've seen the craziest diets as well. They're only really healthy for obtaining a certain appearance. Smartphones 100,000. People cannot put them down. Sitting at an intersection. Better reply to a Snapchat. Sitting in waiting room, public transport, anywhere. Better get the phone out. Need to look busy and avoid sitting with your thoughts. Phone. Go out for a meal with friends, family. Let's all sit on our phones and ignore each other. It's really bad now. People can't even walk down the street with their head glued to their phone. Sugar. It's difficult because, like most eating, you can't get away from it 100. This is something I'm struggling with currently. If I don't eat some form of sugar, not only will I crave it, I will constantly think about it to the point it can disrupt my day. It's worse than caffeine for me. I know the sugar itself isn't technically addictive. It's the dopamine opioid release that entices addictive behavior. But still, salt is one I often think about. I have a pretty bad diet and I consume lots of salt. So, when I was staying at the house of a mostly vegetarian family, I started going into salt withdrawal. Felt terrible. Not quite like I was dying or anything, but more just a constant crappy feeling coupled with a headache every day for over a week. It was quite eye-opening because I know plenty of people with similar diets to me. Smartphones is the most messed up thing I've seen in my lifetime. Everyone is always on their phone, including while driving. But the worst was the other day. There was a small child about for trying to run and play while simultaneously watching his phone. I felt so bad for him. He was really struggling to do both. Usually, that's an easy decision for a kid when at the playground. Mind-blowing. Gambling. I have a feeling this one is going to get a lot worse with the easy sports betting right from your phone. Not to mention that it is heavily advertised on sports channels. My dad had a gambling addiction as well as struggles with alcoholism while I was growing up. My mum always said she'd take the alcoholism over the gambling. The gambling pretty much ruined them financially. Drama. Any people could have an easier life if they cut off people that they clearly don't get along with or even like at all, but continue to stay in contact with, constantly getting into it with each other. I'm referring specifically to people they have no reason not to cut off. Sometimes having an awful coworker or boss can't be helped if you don't have a new job lined up. Biting your fingernails. I wouldn't really call it an addiction, more so a bad habit. But people aren't always cognizant of how much bacteria and filth is under your nails that you're biting and potentially swallowing. I've had this habit for as long as I can remember, and ironically, I partially attribute the rarity of me getting sick to biting my nails. Knock on wood. Addiction to perceived success. Think of the person that must always look a certain way, own the right brands, the right car, know the right people, and generally be perceived as well-off and highly successful. They also tend to be ones who either thrill-seek or must travel to exotic places. Their life is a show. They can't stop. Nothing is enough. Technology. You should be able to, with a decent amount of ease, navigate a full day without spending any time staring blankly or dissociating at a screen. Hell, unless there's a pressing reason such as being able to be contacted by a sick family member or your boss, you should be able to comfortably go a full day without looking at a screen at all. I was addicted or had an almost uncontrollable habit of biting my nails. All my life I've done it. Then last day I just randomly stopped. I didn't choose to stop. The compulsion just vanished. I'm now having to clip my nails for the first time in my life. It's very odd, and I've been wondering if anything like this has happened to anyone else. A giant majority of what is being posted here can be summarized with dopamine addiction. Most of us have such fucked up endocrine systems, and we don't even know it. We call it porn, gambling, sex, or whatever addiction. No, bro. Your hormones are completely fucked up, and focusing on the branches of your illness will do nothing to its root. Alcoholism. Alcohol affects everyone different. I can be smashed and act relatively normal, while others who have drank the same amount act like fools. My family doesn't give me any shit over it because I go to work and don't act like an ass. Down deep, I know I need to quit though. I have made the transition to bitter, so the progress has begun. I wouldn't say it's ignored. The alcohol in my country became a social necessity. It seems that people can't have fun if alcohol isn't involved in some way. I don't like the energy alcohol brings out, so I avoid drinking and places where drinking is the main purpose. And that actually made me kind of an outcast in my recent social group. Alcoholism is very acceptable in my small town. Everyone seems to drink starting in high school, and DWs are rampant. It's never without one. I know plenty of people who have more than one. I really think that just because it's legal doesn't mean it's not dangerous as any mind-altering substance. Maybe that's just me. Addiction is often hand in hand with drugs and alcohol. And our brains can become addicted to almost anything. Is a big one that most people don't touch on a lot. Or porn. Caffeine usually isn't all that bad, but an addiction is an addiction. A porn addiction can induce some real harm, especially for younger people. Outrage is an addiction. Some people seek it out, actively searching for a reason to hate their neighbors just so they can get their hit of dopamine. It feeds news addiction, tribalism, and eventually extremism. It's the source of so much violence, so many divided houses and ruined lives. But we do nothing to curb it. Fast dopamine, So literally everything that gives you a rush you're not really supposed to activate in nature is ultimately ruining you. We used to patiently hunt and sometimes patiently wait in the caves. And now we're told to be on social media and see 15-second videos. Brain rot that I'm trying to solely quit. Addiction to sugar and processed foods. People don't see or feel the attraction that pop, candy, and sugary treats have on the human body. I really believe that there should be a limit law the amount of sugar used on our products. Also, banning all trans fat would be another step forward for a healthier tomorrow. Weed addiction, especially more prominent after dabs got popular. Addicted to, but there are far too many people out there that think weed is a magical cure-all, and they don't actually need it. Even when they'll be more agitated than cigarette smokers without nicotine. Video games and team sports spectators specifically. You will be surprised how many people devote their entire lives to both of these. When I was going through things, I started playing video games successively, and I literally had to stop because it was an escape from facing my personal problems. Caffeine, sugar, social media, porn. Caffeine is probably the most harmless of the four unless you're unable to function without 8 cups of coffee a day. The withdrawals I got from cutting sugar were fucking horrible, and it lasted to 3 weeks. Seriously, one of the hardest things I've ever done. Smartphone scrolling on IG, Facebook, etc., and caffeine. Always wondered how hard it can be quit. And then I considered how difficult it is to limit smartphone time and not stop at the gas station for an energy drink or pop. It's pretty much the same thing.